Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MitsuTimes podcast. My guest today is Michael Puglisi. How are you today, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
I am great. Mike drives a very cool Time Attack Evo. I think it's it's super cool. Obviously, I have a lot of drag racers on this podcast, but getting to talk to the circuit drivers is just extra special because it just seems like, whereas in the drag racing world, everything is, we all have pretty similar builds. You guys are all very unique, and I love that.
I came from the drag racing world, so I'm very familiar with a lot of your folks, I guess. But it's definitely different. It's definitely different racing for sure.
Well, Mike, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you drive.
Yeah, so my name is Mike Puglisi. I drive a '06 Mitsubishi Evo 9 in Time Attack with Grid Life, and most of my friends actually call me Pug or Pugs. Actually, my wife coined that term, and it just stuck.
Well, Mike, what pulled you into this Time Attack racing?
So actually, before we go that route, I actually want to move back because I did say I was in the drag racing.
Yeah.
So basically, back in 2000s, I used to street race with a group of friends. It wasn't anything like money, or it was like a lot like the Street Outlaws, but except we had like our own list of who was fastest and whatnot. Mostly mental. We didn't actually keep a board or anything. And we would just, every weekend, we would just go out and we would go in these industrial complexes and just race. And then our group started to grow. And we just started hitting more and more people coming to this event. And basically, we actually built a team a lot of people might know as DVT Fab, which ended up actually, at the time, it was DVD Racing, which eventually Albert took over and started his fabrication company, which is an awesome company. So we would constantly street race, and then eventually, obviously us being 4-cylinders versus the V8 guys, there was sort of a little bit of a rivalry there, and we had one of them have an accident because they didn't want to lose to a 4-cylinder. They ended up into a airport and left their front license plate there.
Oh.
And basically, ever since then, the cop showed up at his door, and basically all our spots were ruined. So it just wasn't the same after that. Then we attended the DSM shootouts since 2003 to 2008. Also did some of the AMS DSM Central events. There's 2 of them, I believe, that they held. And then eventually at the time, one of my buddies had an Eagle Talon. He sold it and bought an S2000, which was a really big change. And he actually just wanted to start doing HPDE events. And those are just basically events that you just go on track and you just drive around at a brisk pace, usually as fast as you want to go, right? With that, we actually started attending this event called Western Michigan Honda Meet. So being the only Evo or DSM out there, I was actually racing with these guys, and they actually were the group that actually started the Grid Life series, which now has become massive, right? Started racing with them in 2016, and like Time Attack is just I've always loved to compete, and Time Attack basically has always been honestly it's a perfect step up for people that are drag racers, because it's a lot about the build, which everyone's familiar with, and you are still against the clock, right? So it's actually it's very similar to drag racing in a lot of ways. So it's a very it brings a different set of challenges, obviously, but it is definitely a stepping stone. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I've never kind of compared it in my head to drag racing, but now that you kind of make those correlations, I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of racing to the next corner, and you are against the clock. You do have competition, and you compare yourself to those people. So,
well, Mike, what is it that drew you to the Evo platform specifically?
So I actually owned a 98 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX. So I've always been a fan of the 4G63s and all-wheel drive. I've always liked the Evo, the styling of the Evo, the four-door, and and the drivetrain being all-wheel drive. I've always liked it. And when they first came out, I really wanted one. They were way past my price point. When I did get the opportunity in 2007 to buy one, I did.
Mike, thinking back to your first time attack event, you remember what that experience was like? Because in my head, I imagine that there's so many nerves, especially moving from the drag racing into something like this. And I know you had done the HDPE, but what was that experience like?
Well, there wasn't really that much of a change, honestly, from HPDE. It didn't really feel that way. Actually, if anything, my first HPDE event was a little bit more crazy for me. It was actually a Gingerbread Raceway, and we raced with this group called Three Ball Racing. And they actually, so there's three, so in HPDE, there's three real classes. You have your beginners, your intermediate, and your advanced. And my friend and I thought it would be smart to put ourselves in intermediate. Very quickly learned we didn't really know what we were doing. And I think that was really the first experience, because once you have actually done a bunch of HPDEs, basically jumping into time attack, it's not that much different. You're still racing, you're racing against the clock, which you would be normally if you have a lap timer. And, you kind of go on and off when you feel that you're not constantly full throttle like HPDE. You're not constantly going for the full 15, 20 minutes that people are out there. So,
well, Mike, why don't you talk us through the current setup on your Evo, from the engine, the suspension, all the aero stuff that you have?
So starting with the motor, I'm actually on a 4G64 block. We sleeve it with the Darton dry sleeves, and we bring it back down from, I think it's a 86.5 to 85 millimeter bore, just to help the head gasket seal better. We run a K1 94 millimeter crank that I've been running forever. I know that some people have cracking cranks. This has been, a knock on wood, an awesome crank. I've never had any issues with it. Running Manley 162 millimeter rods with a custom set of Wiseco pistons. I actually have a ported four piston racing CNC head, paired with a GSC S3 cams, running a Garrett GTX 3076R Gen 2, Magnus dry sump oil system, and the PWR radiator and front mount intercooler. Chassis wise, I built my own cage, so it's a 10-point roll cage that followed the NASA specs. I got custom front splitter, diffuser, cognition, rear chassis mounted wing, did Lexan windows, all custom, and an iridium fuel cell and surge tank. For the driveline, I run TRE, everything basically. We run the rear TRE 12-plate max lock, the TRE raced ACD transfer case. So we kept ACD. It's pretty important in road racing. It helps the car rotate better and brake better, and corner entry. We also run thanks for his help, I'm actually running a 6-speed X-Shift sequential that will eventually be paddle shift this year. So I'm pretty excited about that. It really makes it feel like a race car with Quartermaster 8-leg clutch and flywheel. Suspension wise, I'm running a Reinhardt R3 custom valved coilovers. Those are actually they've been awesome. They actually helped with picking out spring rates and valving, and also we're running bump springs on those coilovers for the aero. Running spherical bushings, SSB designed front and rear knuckles. We're running also the front lower control arm, pair and rear sway bar, and I run on yoke AO52s. For the braking, we're running the SS Racing AP, the big 6-pot fronts on DS 111 brake pads, and running the 909 Motorsports Bosch Motorsports ABS on that, which has been phenomenal. And then for electronics, AEM Nexus R5 and AIM Digital Dash. So I know that's a lot. Car makes around 700 wheel horsepower, about 550 torque.
Quite the machine.
Yeah, and that's just the basic high level points. There's a lot more to it, obviously, but those are the big significant guys that help make this thing a monster.
Mike, maybe I missed it, but what are those front fenders? I think that those are just so unique.
They are just I don't even know. I actually got them from TF Works. They actually, because we needed to go wider in the front because we're running an 11-inch wide wheel. So they're like, I think they're part of the Cyber Evo I think it was part of the Cyber Evo that was running something similar to that. I'm trying to remember where. I actually don't know where they came from. I just needed wider. I'm not really a big body person. Like I've never really got into the whole Voltex thing. I just wanted to put as big as a tire as I could on the car. So
that's just, whenever I look at your car, it's one thing that stands out to me is, man, those I've never seen fenders like that before. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm working on rear fenders. I'm making rear fenders out of carbon, and the doors are going to be made out of carbon. I've started to dabble with carbon, which is I've been sort of dabbling with it, but it's a lot of fun. I understand why people charge so much for it. It is a lot of hours, but it is, I'm going to be redoing those fenders to be able to put a 12-inch wide wheel eventually on the car.
Okay. Mike, you talked about running the Nexus R5. Who tunes the car? Who's behind the keyboard?
So I actually do a lot of the bass tuning myself. I came back from the day where AEM was working with AMS. So we kind of started down the AEM road, and then we eventually moved to Haltech. And ultimately, I think Haltech is phenomenal. The people, the support that they offer is awesome. Like I've never been with an ECU company that's been so helpful. You can basically call them and get any questions almost answered. But when it comes to tuning the car to its limits, I actually originally I had Mikey from M Spec Tuning was the one that was originally tuning the car. Eventually down the line, sort of fortunately, he had some health issues, and then I went to Graham from Boosted Performance. He does a lot of Subaru stuff. He helped take the package to the next level.
Well, Mike, I'm always curious with the circuit drivers. I know what kind of data drag racers collect. That when you get back from the end of the run and you get your laptop out and you start looking at the numbers. What data are you looking at after a run?
So I'm looking at a range of stuff. So the biggest thing I think a road racer can do to simplify what we really need is basically GPS speed and position and lateral or longitude G-forces. A lot of that you're reviewing over distance. You can kind of get an idea of where you're fast and where you're slow, right? And then more advanced techniques, getting throttle, brake pressure, steering input. Those are all critical items that kind of give you more insight to, why didn't you get the throttle sooner? Your braking efficiency, making sure that your braking threshold is, you want to hit your peak brake pressures, and then it kind of comes down. So that becomes more advanced. Also, even being on track, we still pull logs for performance. We want to make sure like air fuels are in place, coolant temperatures, is the transmission shifting quickly enough? Are we recovering power quickly? So there's also that as well. So we do pull all kinds of data, and we try to pull them as soon as we get off track, so it's all fresh in your head.
Right. I know, the same in drag racing, but in road racing, just having that tenth here and there that you can save, or wherever you can shave time is so crucially important. For you, Mike, and all the different kind of setups that you've had on this Evo over the years, what has been the best upgrade that you've done to shave those lap times down?
So there's two I'm going to actually offer here. So the first one, the first thing I would say is reviewing data. Number one, key. Being able to pull your data after every run and reviewing where you're at and work on one item at a time. There is actually, in data, when you review data, there's a lot to look at. With drag racers, you've got that quarter mile data. You're mostly focused on the 60 foot, and it's a little bit of a smaller, compressed, information load. In road racing, you've got a minute and a half, 2 minutes on track. That's a lot to look at. So actually, one of my buddies out here, he designed. There's a site called Fire Labs, and it actually has AI training. A lot of the Garmin sort of do this kind of stuff, but this is more accessible to multiple different types of data logging. So I suggest if people are new, that's a great way to move and help you kind of develop understanding of what the data and the squiggly lines mean. And then number two, I say mechanical grip is key. And Dallas, those SSB knuckles are the craziest mod that you ever want to do. The roll center on an Evo is so high because they're really rally cars. They're not really designed to be on a track,
Right.
like that. And when you lower them, it actually kills the roll center. Those knuckles made such a big difference. They made the car a completely different animal.
Well, Mike, you've tried probably hundreds, if not thousands, of different parts over the years. Is there anything that you would change about this build early on, knowing what you know now?
I think I would have started with the knuckles, and then also just focusing on data and driver. That's a very big key. Driver and learning how to drive fast and consistent is really important.
We hear from a lot of road racers on this podcast that seat time is the best upgrade.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, when you're setting up the car for an event, do you focus more on the raw power or chassis balance, or is it just getting the tune right?
I guess it's a little give and take, but ultimately, I think chassis is a key development area because if you can't get the car to do what you want it to do, it's a problem, right? And you end up becoming like a Tesla. You can floor it down the straights, but you got no cornering capabilities. But then eventually, power becomes everything with road racing.
Well, Mike, is there one mod that you would never do, no matter how many road racers swear by it?
I can't think of one. I'm thinking about this. I think honestly, I'd have to say now there's a time attack thing. I can't. I'm probably gonna crucify for this. I cannot stand the exhaust dumps out of the hood. I just could never do it. I don't want to see the flames. I don't want the exhaust coming into my face.
Right. Or even oil on the windshield.
Yeah, that would not be fun.
Do hell on that Lex. Well, Mike, walk us through a typical race day from the time you're unloading the car off the trailer to your first time out on track. What are you doing?
So when you first get to the event, obviously you unload the car. You want to set up the car. I have to actually install the splitter every single time. That behemoth cannot be loaded like that. Then you basically check in with tech and timing. You probably spend some time reviewing some videos before I actually go on track for the first time. So it's not very exciting, but that's basically my routine.
I understand. One thing that I think about when I compare, my experience with drag racing with what I would imagine it's like for a road racer, one thing that I think about is, if I miss that 1-2 shift, I'm probably just going to shut it down and coast down the track. But how do you as a road racer stay resilient after maybe missing a shift or, missing your line going into the corner?
Well, we don't. So even if you do screw up a line recovery, cars aren't going to do exactly everything you want them to do every single time, right? Especially around the racetrack and your tires are changing temperatures and whatnot. So a lot, you just kind of continue down the lap. A lot of times afterwards, I would just make mental notes of where the issue was, look at data, and just kind of look over, try to understand what happened, so that you can possibly avoid it next time. Kind of determine if it's setup, if it's a driver input error, or whatnot. I did have a situation where I was in competition. We do these things where there are sprint races where we are allowed to be on track by ourselves technically, and you get about 2 hot laps. So generally, your fastest lap will be your second one. By that time, the tires are warm and they're at their peak grip. And unfortunately, with this type of competition, if you go 4 off, it's a DNF. I was setting up for my second flyer. I was down turn 4, and then I just made a mistake and I went off. And the reason why I ended up going off and after reviewing data is because I didn't have that peak brake pressure. It looked like kind of climbing a mountain. And that I learned that quickly that was my mistake. And then obviously going forward, that's a focus of mine.
Okay.
So.
Mike, I imagine there's a lot of pressure learning a new track. What is your process for learning a new track and optimizing your lines of that track?
So ultimately, a lot of people do the simulator, which is a very helpful thing. I unfortunately don't have a simulator. I should get one. I've been told to get one. But if you don't have a simulator, like some sort of software, you can basically print the track maps. So learn your corners, learn what they're called, watch video, a lot of video, especially if someone that might have an in-car with like speeds and stuff like that. It's just something similar to your car. Kind of give you an idea of where your braking markers are and what mile an hour you're expecting to see. And also just visually learning, those min speeds and those braking points are pretty critical. If you can walk the track. It gives you a good idea. So those are basically the things that I do to try to learn a new track.
Well, Mike, how do you manage your tire wear and your brake fade when it comes to multiple sessions at an event?
So yeah, it's not so common in time attack. I mean, you can still get brake fade, obviously, but a lot of times there's no point of pushing lap after lap with time attack because you will, even if you drive better the second time, your tires are already exhausted by that point. Unfortunately, you can actually sort of like take the cool down lap and then try again. So by then usually brakes are cooler and the tires are cooled down a little bit. And then you do have multiple sessions. So like if it just isn't the session for you, just you get off and wait for the next session.
Gotcha. Well, Mike, over all the years, what has been your favorite track to race your Evo at?
That's a great question. I would say Road Atlanta. I don't know if anyone's played Forza before, but if you've ever seen Road Atlanta in person, it is nothing like the video game. Like the elevation change on turn 12 going into the start finish line is just intense. The first time I ever walked that track, I was like, I have to go at what speed down this? It is insane, but it's a very high risk reward track, which makes it a lot of fun. And then I would have to say Gingerman also because it's where racing started for me. That's where real life started. That's our benchmark. That's our, it's just our home. So
right. If your home track's not your favorite, that's not.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike, what has been your favorite on-track memory over all these years?
So my favorite track memory. They have to be taking my in-laws for a ride around. They're not really car people. It's taking people for a ride is just like an eye-opening moment for them because they just don't understand how crazy the G-forces are. I mean, they're used to panic stopping because someone stopped short at a red light. That's not anything like track. And it was so much fun. And you would think that I hate my in-laws, but I love them. But it was so fun to get their reaction from it.
That's awesome.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Kenny Klein of Just a Tune. He offers both dyno and street remote tuning, track support, remote diagnostics, repair services, and parts sales. He has over 20 years experience with the DSM building, tuning, and racing. Find all that in one person plus the knowledge he brings to the table makes him a one-stop shop for all your DSM needs. I trust Kenny with my FP Black 2G GSX, and he has made everything a breeze. His level of experience is truly worth the price of a tune. He can be reached at Facebook or email kenny@justatune.net.
Well, Mike, you know, a lot of in motorsports is oftentimes a lot of mechanical failures. Have you ever had an on-track mechanical failure or a scary moment on track?
Yeah, I did actually, with a passenger in the car too. I actually used to have a carbonetics clutch that exploded, and it took out the transmission. It took out the radiator. It took out that part of the motor too. And basically, what ended up happening is we were on a long straight. As soon as I hit the braking point and downshifted, the transmission that clutch exploded, and it sent coolant all over the track. I was on slicks, so there's no tread on those, and I was instantly sideways pointing at a corner worker. Fortunately, I was able to get the car slowed down without any kind of damage or any kind of hitting anything. But see, that was a really scary moment for me, especially. Yeah, learn to not use that clutch.
Sound like a fun time at all.
No, it was not. It was a blast.
Oh.
It got good stories though. The person still brings it up today.
Remember when you tried to kill me?
Yeah.
Well, Mike, how would I get to where you are with absolutely zero experience in this type of racing?
I would start with HPDE events, autocross. And there's a lot of good organizations, NASA, SCCA, Chin track days, laps track day. A lot of these places offer instructors. They'll sit in the car with you. They'll go on a whiteboard in a classroom before you even go out on track. So I believe those are the best way. Make sure you start in beginner though, and don't start intermediate like I did. But I think it's important to get the basics down from those people. Also, AIM also does a lot of live webinars. They store them on YouTube. Those are great places to learn how to use the data software after being on track. And also, I recommend Ross Bentley Speed Secrets as a book, and he kind of goes over kind of the basic driving. I think those are very important fundamentals that anyone that is starting should consider.
Well, Mike, in your experience, what have been the strengths and weaknesses of the Evo when it comes to circuit driving?
So I would say some of the strengths are the Evo corner exit is a monster. We're able to put down power, high horsepower on track that were maybe a front wheel drive, rear wheel drive will have to struggle. And it's definitely one of the faster chassis out there. Even over, I'm going to crucify on this, but Subarus, those are really the only all-wheel drive platform out there that I can think of. We do see them a lot, but I think the Evo has a better balance than those Subarus. The weakness, I think, would have to be the car is a high maintenance car. It's definitely eats through consumables, tires, brakes. Weight balance is a little because of the weight balance, and I always describe the Evo as a bodybuilder that never does leg days. As the weight is all in the front, and it's so easy to get weight out of the rear. It's very difficult to get it out of the front. Another downside is that this might be just an all-wheel drive thing, but it teach you some bad driving habits because it allows you to do things that you shouldn't be able to do maybe in a front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive car. You can get to power before you should be able to get to power because it'll just kind of help correct. And I think the biggest thing that Evos and even Subarus out there, we're starting to show the Evo, they're starting to show their ages. New cars coming out are far superior. The Supra with their ZF 8-speed transmission, and they're putting down fast times, and they're much more capable. So
probably need a lot less maintenance too, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, bone stock motors, they can put down 750. Obviously you'd have to do some transmission work with them, but they're just very capable cars. And we're starting to see that a lot with newer cars. And nothing beats a factory setup car.
Fair enough. Well, Mike, let's say that I do have an Evo and I'm doing my local autocross, but I want to, start building my Evo towards time attack. What would you suggest that I prioritize in my build?
We'll start with I mean, basically seat time. Keep running. I would start focusing on seat time, and start maybe down some suspension work. Obviously, knuckles if you can. I mean, you start getting more advanced at that point. But I think even just, I guess maybe let's take a step back there. I would say suspension and tires and learning air pressures with tires and alignment. Start down that path first before you start doing any serious mods.
Well, what are your next big goals for this car? Is it faster lap times, or upgrading to a different class, or even trying out a new track?
I actually just continue to improve lap times. I do like, I wouldn't love to try new tracks as grid life maybe grows. So hopefully VIR might be down at some point. And, I've always toyed with changing classes. I do like the class I'm in because like 200 treadwear tires that we run that, we don't have a limit on 200 treadwear, but 200 treadwear seems to be the faster tire out there over a slick. Slicks tend to say heat cycle out, where a 200 treadwear tire could go for a few seasons, or at least a season, or a season, half of a season. So it becomes like a money thing. So like I've always liked to stick with track or my class because it allows for those type of tires.
Understandable. Okay. Well, Mike, are there any future mods in the works, or are you just refining the current setup you have now?
Yeah, I would say I think the focus now and the goal of the car is that I've got most of the major stuff done, is just reducing weight and updating the aero, trying to make basically less drag, more downforce, and then also consider moving up in the turbo size. I do have to. I mean, my turbo is pretty small, and my competitors are making way more horsepower than I am. So yeah, that probably would help.
Mike, do you see yourself sticking with time attack long term, or do you want to explore maybe some other different types of circuit racing?
At this time, I don't really see myself leaving time attack. I enjoy time attack. Wheel to wheels looks fun. I don't think I could put myself in the contact position because eventually contact can happen. So I think it would crush me, knowing how much work I put into the car and whatnot. So, but I've always loved time attack though, and I enjoy the people at these events, and they're it's always been fun. So I'm not really looking to change anytime soon.
Fair. Well, I mean, speaking of those events, Mike, what events can we see you in action at this year?
So actually next week I'll be at Mid-Ohio. And then the next big one that's coming up is Grid Life Summer Apex at Road America. They do actually not televise, YouTube stream these events. They're super professional looking. They have like graphics and whatnot. So it's kind of cool. So you can always catch me on that. And I probably will be running at Pitt at some point this year with Grid Life.
Well, Mike, where can people find and follow you on social media so they can see some more of this car and maybe see you in action?
You can always follow us or follow me on D&M Racing. That's on Instagram, and also myself, Mike Puglisi. Those are the best places to get me.
Well, Mike, at the end, I always give people a chance to give a thanks or a shout out to anybody who's helped them out along the way, anybody who's helped them get their car where it is. Is there anybody that you want to give a thanks or a shout out to?
Yeah, yes, I do. I would definitely first and foremost John and Aaron from Thierry. They've been massive in the drivetrain area and helping develop the car. And from there, Tony from UMS Tuning. He's been able to be a sounding board and help with just basic like development of the car and ideas. He helped me a lot with the head gasket stuff. Fuel injector clinic. I think they are a DSM injector. They originally started as a DSM injector. That's all I've ever run, and I'm actually on their 1650s, which are perfect for E85 with the stainless steel internals. A person that's not around, a company's not around anymore, but I still have to give them a shout out. Racing. Basically, they provide help with wholesale. They're friends and they help with wholesale parts. So they were really critical in getting the car to where it's been much faster. Dave from Reinhardt Suspension for all the suspension help. Miles from English Racing, actually. He actually helped with the ACD Flash and getting me like 2 ECUs to play with. The Flash is definitely a big improvement in the way the car corner entries and exits. Graham from Boosted Performance Tuning. He's the one that does the high performance tuning on the Evo. Professional Awesome Racing. They help with the aero. I've asked them, they're great friends, and they basically have given me advice on what to and what not to do as far as aero. Also SSAP Racing. They're the ones that actually have the big, massive 6-pot calipers and 14-inch rotor that's sitting in my car. They have, Evos, like the Brembos on the fronts of the Evos are not great. They actually help develop a good kit for our platform, much lighter, cheaper consumables. So they've always been awesome. They've been on board for a very long time. Dallas from SSB Design, those knuckles, and also he helped with getting values from my steering input angle from our factory encoder. It was awesome now that I can actually have steering input or steering angle is pretty cool. And then Magnus Motorsports, Matt specifically, where he used to work for, now he works for YD Motorsports. He was the one that helped me with the dry sump. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have gone dry sump that soon.
Wow, lots of really cool companies. A lot of companies that, I feel like a lot of times road racers kind of tick off companies I've never heard of before, but it's cool to see, the crossover, obviously, between, the drag racing world and the road racing world. That's really cool.
Yeah, and especially Magnus obviously is massive, right? They're the fact that they came on board and helped me was just incredible. Everyone knows Magnus, everyone knows Marco, and that was I think that was one of my high moments between that and English Racing, because everyone knows these people. It's this is the core companies that help build the DSM community. In my opinion.
Sure, yeah, without a doubt. Well, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and tell your story and share a little bit about your Evo. And definitely we'll be watching the stream of these Grid Life events, and I'm trying to work out some plans to come see one in action.
That'd be great. Yeah. I'll post, and if you're interested in that, I will post those we'll post the information out on the D&M Racing Instagram. If you're interested in viewing it, and also you obviously don't have to watch it live. You can always watch it later too. If your work gets in the way. So.
Good. I wish you the best of luck, and again, thank you for taking the time to come on and do this.
Yeah. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.